Welcome to the Green Medicine Podcast. Today I'd like to welcome Sheryl J. Burchill. Sheryl is an Aboriginal artist living in the Daintree in far North Queensland. Sheryl completed formal studies in art in 2013 and she's participated in over 25 group shows since 2012. Her mediums are printmaking, painting, sculpture, drawing and installation. As a Kuku Yalnji woman, she draws on her culture to inspire and express her creativity. Welcome, Sheryl, and I'm just so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Barbara. When you first invited me, I was like, should I do this? But my spirit told me I needed to be here. So I'm really happy to be here.
Well, thank you. I feel very privileged to have this opportunity, to talk with you.
Yeah, I feel very privileged to actually be in your presence, Dal. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm aware that you use a range of materials and processes, including printmaking, drawing, painting and assemblage. Do you have a preference with the mediums that you use?
When I first started doing art, I would do a lot of paintings. So I had two sons and I had spare time being at home with my sons from work. So I started doing a lot of sketches and paintings. And then when I went back to work, I started doing Cert 3 and 4 in visual arts. And then I eventually went on to do a diploma in visual arts. And I did many workshops. But I found along the way I always loved textiles. The funny thing is I'm not doing textiles at the moment. I'm doing a lot of printmaking using etching plates. I'm enjoying seeing my art grow, though, along the way. Hopefully I'll get back to doing the textiles and the screen printmaking, though.
I suppose in any kind of art practice, so we change and, we experiment with different mediums.
Yeah, yeah. And I think every year, every day, every time is different. And you kind of go with the flow.
Yeah.
So I try to go with what I'm feeling at the time. And to me, doing art is like a healing or a meditation. So I believe my spirit takes on the energy it needs from the art when I'm producing them. So if I'm doing the etching plates, I do, say for example, I'm doing a basket. The fine lines that you've got to do to show the intricacy of basket weaving, to me, when I'm doing that, it's like meditating. So you forget about everything around you and you do these lines and you keep doing them and you keep doing them. But the end result is beautiful.
It's interesting when you sent me through some of your images from your prints. I was actually speaking to Jill about it and said, oh, this work is so beautiful. There's so much fineness and precision.
Yeah.
I noticed that in the strokes, in the images, in the baskets.
Yeah. So I did that over a year ago, those baskets. And at the time I had my mum living with me in my care. So I was doing a lot of bonding with my mum, even more so, as well as taking care of her, which is a huge role. So I was travelling to Cairns every fortnight. So that was my day out.
Wow.
And I used that. I used that then to kind of have my healing and my time. But it also, I found my spirit was producing all of this connectedness with my mum and my culture and the stories she was sharing with me at the time. So it was a beautiful time in my life.
So you've kind of almost answered my next question, actually, which is what's the message that you're trying to communicate in your art?
Yeah, it's basically everything that the elders in my family have shared to me over the years and still sharing, because we're blessed to still have them with us. I'm putting that beauty into the art. Eventually, I will tell more of their stories with their permission, but I believe the stories have been told by the images and the beauty in the art. Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes we don't necessarily need the verbal aspect of saying the imagery. And that's what I felt when I was looking at your prints as well.
Yeah.
It was,
I hope and would like my art to speak for itself.
I think most artists would agree with you there.
Yeah.
I noticed too you use a lot of dragonfly imagery in your artwork.
Yeah.
Can you share what the significance of that is?
So years ago, I separated from my son's dad and I was going through a transition. And at the time when I picked up a pen and started drawing again, the dragonflies became a part of that journey. And I believe it's this transition of me going to wherever it is I'm meant to be going. So those dragonflies are flying with me. And I thought it was just for that part, but I found it's throughout my whole life now that these dragonflies and the affiliation I have with them are still there. So obviously it's a huge journey of sorts.
So when you think of dragonflies, what do you think of?
I think of transition and going from one thing to another. Because when I remember as a teenager going up to the gorge, you know, to swim and do all of that, or even just the local creeks. And when you're sitting on the rocks, you see these dragonflies darting from one thing to another. So they're moving around, and that's what my life is. You take on one project, then you go to another and another. So I feel like I'm this dragonfly doing that. But on saying that, I did say to Mum, what does the dragonfly mean in our culture? You know, what does it represent? And she said, the dragonflies, we call them wind tellers, because on a windy day you see clusters of them. So in our culture, it's wind tellers. But on my personal journey, I feel like it's transitions of things happening in my life.
Wow. And what's a wind teller?
So when you see them flying around, it's going to be a windy day. So it's one way of telling us the weather too, I suppose.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. So interesting.
Yeah. So you could probably put the two together too. So the wind teller telling us about the weather and what kind of a day it's going to be.
Wow.
For you as an individual, maybe.
Yeah.
Because if you sit and you be still, you look around at the energy in nature, it talks to you and it does share.
And I think that is really kind of deep in a way, because it's about the more we can connect with nature and the more that we can become still in nature, the more we get in touch with the language of nature.
Yeah, the more you get to listen.
And I'm also very interested in your thoughts about Jasper, because that was such a significant event in far North Queensland and had such a big impact on the environment and on people's lives.
Yeah, huge impact, you know, and we're still going through it. You look at the roads, they're still being worked on. You drive up the Cape Tribulation and you look at those once pristine creeks and rivers are now covered in red. And I've spoken to an elder of mine that lives in Burchill, Annie Frances Walker, and she was saying she went on that trip when the Cape Trib Road or Coastal Road reopened, and she said it's like the mountains were crying or bleeding, because now the rocks and the creeks are lined with this red soil. And I go out to the reef often with my partner and I look back onto the mountains, and where the heaviness of the clouds and all of the rain fell, it's like our region has been through a battlefield. I always looked back at the mountains and I always thought to me they remind me of these huge entities, either dragons or lizards or something, but I felt like they were guardians of this region. And I look at them now and I see so many battle scars, which are all the landslips. I felt sorry at first when I saw that, and I was like, oh, it's devastating, you know. But now I feel like there's a shift coming of sorts where maybe Mother Nature's waking up. She's waking up and waking everybody else up.
Yeah. I was just going to say, and waking us up. Because where I live as well, at Oak Beach, we've got mountains, you know, behind us. And with the amount of water that we had too, we've actually got scars now on the mountain, and it's so profound. And from the beach, when I walk on the beach, I often say to people, look up at the mountains. It looks like a dragon to me. It looks like I really feel very protected, but I can feel the energetic of a being there.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to talk with you about this, because I think this is something that we don't talk about very often.
No.
And also because maybe most people aren't, you know, very connected to the natural environment, so we don't perhaps give ourselves the opportunity to experience what's there and what's trying to talk to us.
Or even see it
And
when it's right there in front of us. But we get so busy in our lives, our mundane lives, if you like, where we get caught up in a rut. We don't see the beauty on the changes that's actually happening. And everyone whinges about this and that, but really we should just stop and go with the flow.
And also accept that these changes that have actually occurred are creating changes in our lives as well, which I think are going to be very positive.
Yeah. After the cyclone had come through and after months of everything coming back to what we call normal, I'd been out on the reef with my partner and I looked back and, you know, I'd mentioned that there were a lot of scarring and all of the landslips, but I didn't mention that I started counting them all. And I stopped counting after 50.
Wow.
So from, say, maybe Mossman up to Woodgill, I counted 50 and stopped at that. I couldn't see the landslips on the mountains behind what I could see, so there were obviously more. And then one day I travelled by boat to go for lunch at Yorkeys Knob, and I started counting all of the landslips from Daintree down to Palm Cove. I stopped counting at 20. I've since read that there are over 100 landslips that had come from Jasper. So to me, that's change. That's Mother Nature taking back what's hers, making a stance. And if we're in tune and if we're listening and we stop delving into our poor me, we'll see and go with that shift and allow that change to come naturally. I know a lot of people were displaced, which is really sad, and people are still going through the displacement. Their units, their shops, their houses are getting renovated. But I see changes coming within those people because I'm seeing it with my own uncle and auntie. You know, they've had to shift to have their old places renovated, but I can feel and see the shift in them happening. And when I'm having conversations with them, I feel like they're these, you know, you can be as old as 80 or 82, change is still going to continue. And I'm seeing it.
Well, so long as we're having a human experience, we're going to experience change. But when you talk about the shifts or changes, do you have any sense of feeling what that is? Or
positive changes coming. I don't know how it is for the non-Indigenous, but I feel like our people are having a voice now, you know, and my auntie talks a lot now and my uncle talks a lot, you know, whereas they were always told to be quiet about culture, but now they're happy just to talk and to have the blessing of having that time to listen to them. Oh, I can't describe how much of a blessing it is. But I just see the shift in them, their persona, their personality and who they are. And I believe everyone else around, it's happening for them. They might not see it now because they're going, no one wants to change. Everyone gets comfortable in their lives, right?
Yes. We're very easy to get stagnant.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, our lives aren't, things are already planned out for us. You know, we don't have control of our lives.
No.
But we are part of nature. And nature's this strong being where Mother Nature will take control. She will take back what's hers, and we have no choice but to move with it. And once we start moving with that, things will start falling into place.
I agree, and this is what green medicine's about for me, is really understanding that, you know, we're a micro part of the macro, and the macro is the universe and the greater universe, and we're a part of that. So we're reflected in that. I think in the past we've been, you know, seeing ourselves as separate to it, and we're not.
We're not.
We're very much connected to it. And maybe now we're actually having the opportunity to really experience that and to see what that really feels like.
Yeah.
And if anybody's got something to teach us about that, it's Indigenous people of Australia.
Yeah. I was about to say we've always had it. We've always had it and we still do. But the society that we live in now, some of us forget, you know, because we're trying to survive in the society. But if we step back and go back to the beginning, that's what our people have always had, and that's why we can live in nature. I remember Mum saying when they were young they would go into the Daintree River looking for freshwater mussels, and the crocodiles didn't harm them.
Wow.
Because they were in one.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And when I've been working with Indigenous people on the Cape for 10 years, and I've learned so much just from being there and listening. Even though I was going there to work with Indigenous people, I felt like I was the person that was being taught. And just by simply listening and watching and coming to understand the connection that Indigenous people have got with country, with community, with culture, and working together as one has been very profound. And I feel like I've been very privileged and blessed to have that experience.
Yeah.
And this is the experience now that's open to, all of us really, if we're prepared to open our eyes and open our hearts.
Yeah. And that's what we've been saying for a long time. And imagine how much of a better country Australia would be if that acceptance was there.
Totally. I mean, it would be totally remarkable, So, but thank you. And also, I think for our viewers today, it's so wonderful to have the privilege of, listening to you and for you to share these stories that you've got and for people to open their hearts and listen and embrace these changes that are coming.
Yep. Allow nature to come in and just start learning about culture, our culture, because it's always been here and it's always going to be here.
Yeah, fantastic.
You go to Japan, you learn their culture. Why not do that with one of the most oldest cultures in the world? And we live in one of the oldest rainforests in the world.
We do. We're living in this primordial, Edenic environment. We truly have so much to learn. I'm wondering if nature is a big part of what you get your inspiration from.
I do, definitely. It always has been. Nature always has been an inspiration for me to produce my arts. Like when you see a lizard or a snake and the patterning on them, even if you look at the bark on a tree, they're not just black and white. They have these beautiful textures and colours, and that's what I look at. So then the vision I see, I feel like goes through my spirit, then it comes out onto my hands, onto my art pieces.
So you're very much connected with your natural environment in what you do. So what are you currently working on at the moment, Sheryl?
So I've just come through doing a couple of exhibitions, one through Northside, which was exhibited through KIAF at the time. So KIAF, the Cairns Indigenous Art Fair's now come and gone. I also had some pieces, some etching pieces or prints in an exhibition down at the Cairns, what is it called? The Cairns Courthouse Gallery.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so always lots going on within the art. Still producing art pieces for the Mossman Gorge Centre. I also work with a company called Alpha Stein Design, and they're a family company down south who use my art pieces to go on their packaging of their merchandise.
Oh, wow.
So I've always got stuff happening.
Wow, very positive.
Yeah. Got lots going on, and just produce some artwork for the new cultural centre, which they're looking at building over at Cape Tribulation.
Oh, great. And when's that opening, do you know? Or?
No, I think they're going to start looking at maybe starting the works next year. But they're just fine-tuning a lot of stuff at the moment and doing a lot of consultations, with Queensland Parks and Wildlife Service and our traditional owners. Yeah. Just so that they get things right when the time comes
very
to.
Important.
Yeah.
So, where do you see your art practice in 5 years? If you, vision it, where do you see it?
I'd like to fully be involved in it in a sense that it will be my life. I don't want to go back to working for anybody else. But I want my art practice to be my work. It's hard to say because it's hard to look into the future 5 years' time. I hope that I'm still doing it all, and I hope I'm still telling the stories of my elders and my family because, they may not be around in 5 years' time.
And I know you said to me earlier that you've been spending a lot of time with your family and with the elders, and I imagine you draw a lot of inspiration and creativity from them.
I do. Like listening to the stories from my elders. Blessed to still have my 85-year-old mum in my life.
Wow.
And then her brother, my uncle who's just turned 82, and then another auntie who's just turned 80.
Wow.
So just sitting in their presence.
Yes.
And even if they're not talking, their presence is what's giving me inspiration and making my spirit strong to continue to tell their stories. And hopefully those stories will still be around when my children have children. My sons have their children.
Very, very inspiring. I think now in our culture, we often don't spend time with our elders to listen to their stories and to listen to their lives and what they've got to share with us. And when they're gone, that's gone. So this is the important time, isn't it?
It's such a blessing, like when I first took on Mum and I had her for the year, just the joy of listening to her and getting to know her as a person and not a mum.
Yes.
Just getting to know her and knowing her stories and seeing her stories through my eyes. And hopefully I can share that with everyone else with her consent. Because Mum wasn't just Mum. Mum to me was this huge figure in our lives, and she still is, where she's just, her spirit is so strong. And I want to share that because when she goes, she's going to leave that legacy within all of us.
She certainly is.
And we have festivals like Yarrabah Festival, Laura Festival, all of those. There's talk about us having a Yalanji festival. But the thing is, when you're seeing an Indigenous person down the streets, don't ignore them. At least say hello, because that's all they want at the end of the day, to be acknowledged.
Yeah,
because this
hello
is
and a smile and a welcome.
Because this is the only country they know. Whereas a lot of other people have come to the country, but it's not just us; it's the whole humanity of us accepting and acknowledging one another.
That we're all connected, we're all interconnected, and to stop, for me, any division I've got, any sense of separation.
It doesn't matter what colour our skin is. We all bleed red blood. At the end of the day, we are all humans living on one planet.
And it's an opportunity for us to really appreciate diversity and the richness that comes from diversity as well.
Yeah.
That's the thing I learnt going up, to the Cape and working with Indigenous people. I'm a richer person as a result of that experience.
Yeah.
And,
as much as things have happened to our people, I feel we're richer by having a culture as well as living in that Western society. So we can hold on to our culture and be that person, but we can also be doctors, lawyers, TV stars.
It can be anything
you want.
Anything you want.
As long as you stay true to yourself and who you are.
And as long as you're authentic to what your truth is.
Yeah, and accepting yourself and accepting the next person that's in front of you or that comes into your life.
Totally. If people want to have a look at your artwork and see what you're working on or what you've done in the past, where would they go to do that? Because I know you're talking about working on a website at the moment.
Yeah. I'm hopefully going to get a website up. So hopefully I'll have that up in the next year. I'm one of those people where I can never move fast. Working fast doesn't agree with me. You can purchase art of mine through Alpha Stein Design. They're products with my art. You can go to the Mossman Gorge Cultural Centre. I try to do exhibitions once a year or a couple of times a year in Cairns through the Cairns Art Gallery or the Cairns Courthouse or even Northside.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what we'll make sure that our viewers actually have, those websites that they can link on to follow through. So the ones that you mentioned earlier. And we'll look forward to seeing, a website emerging in the next 12 months or whenever it arrives. But look, I've really enjoyed talking with you today, and I feel it's been a real privilege for you to come and, give your valuable time to talk. So thank you so much, and I just wish you all the best in your art practice and in your life.
Thank you so much for having this time to give to me, like your time, because I believe you're as busy as I am. And, everyone that's involved, Art Nexus, for doing what they do, because they do support artists. And I've always been a member of theirs for a long time, so I see what they do. Yeah, but thank you. And hopefully everyone out there will get to see the real us, the Kuku Yalnji people of this Shire, because we are beautiful people and we've got so much to share.
You are, and there's so much that's so deep and so profound. I think it's time for us to really open up and hear it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara Malarski is a doctor of Chinese medicine with 25 years clinical expertise. She has a teaching background, establishing a natural therapies program in Cairns, far North Queensland, Australia, where she trained over 750 students in remedial massage and oriental health medicine. Her other passion developed through working with First Nations people in New Zealand, where she was born, and 3 decades in Australia on Cape York and in New South Wales, working with Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander communities. These experiences have enriched her life through deep connection with people and the environments they live in. Barbara resides in Oak Beach, far North Queensland, on 2 acres of forest that border World Heritage listed forest. She sees herself as a privileged custodian.